Hello, and welcome to Session 4, Funding and Financing Childcare Facilities. The topics we will explore in today's session are capital sources for childcare facilities, funding and finance models for development, the role of tax credits and legislative tools, and recommendations to optimize current models. First, let's begin with common sources of capital utilized for childcare facility development. Our objectives through this section are to review those common capital sources for childcare facilities and guide users to explore some of the ways they are used in the development process. While there are many complex ways to fund and finance childcare, this toolkit will cover the sources most often utilized in Colorado and review additional sources that may play a part in current and future development work. Some of the most common sources for childcare facility development are through local and state grant funds, local fundraising and private donors, and loans and other debt mechanisms, and may vary widely in the amounts contributed to this type of facility. Other sources that might be leveraged in a typical capital stack are tax credits, dedicated local funding, employers and employer partnerships, in-kind services and donations, congressionally directed spending, and subsidized or shared program and operational expenses. More information on these funding sources can be found in the Toolkit Resource Hub on the DOLA website. Before pursuing a capital stack for childcare, it is vital to assess local needs, as discussed in Session 2, consider more than one financial and partnership pathway, as well as understand most applicable sources for capital and spread awareness of both the importance and impact of this work to local priorities and aligned efforts. The following steps will help to align priorities in each of these areas and include conducting a market analysis, developing a robust business plan, identifying varied sources of capital, and driving local advocacy efforts. Let's dive a little deeper into each of these foundations of success. A strong data-informed rationale is one of the most powerful planning steps to engage in, as it helps set potential neutral and mutual ground of where to direct efforts for facility development. Some of the key benefits in conducting a market analysis includes identifying areas of community need, defining priority activities, collecting measurable and qualitative data on local trends, and identifying potential leaders and partners in the path forward. Childcare also has a unique business and financial model that must be considered carefully, as it includes high fixed and variable costs relative to startup and ongoing operations. For this reason, engaging in a robust cost analysis and pro forma financial modeling process will help to determine possible challenges or needed shifts early, reducing overall cost and time deficits throughout the process. A flexible and well-informed business and financial model ensures established scenarios for group and individual reflection, creates a foundation for any changes or complexities in the process as mentioned. It helps to visualize partner roles and provides framework for operator engagement and stability over time. While raising external sources of capital are critical to most development efforts, identifying unique and local assets, including previously untapped dollars, investors, or other partners, can support capital needs for childcare facilities, especially as local priorities are being focused more and more on childcare across the state as a critical economic and workforce driver. Identifying sources of capital will help to stimulate an internal review process, to identify any existing and potential assets, helps to establish new donors, partners, and investors in local real estate, and increases network and knowledge of funding and finance tools for childcare facilities across several parties and entities. There are often local leaders and stakeholders that are helping move childcare facility efforts forward, Yet, there is a great opportunity to engage in intentional and additional awareness building efforts, as many misconceptions can be developed about childcare, and it is a complex and often nuanced need locally that can be communicated more thoroughly and widely. Some ways to approach advocacy efforts are identifying local champions and supporters, impacting legislator and local official priorities and advocacy at the state level, and spreading awareness of the value and impact of investing in childcare solutions, helping to activate and elevate influential voices that represent your community and your state. In the next section, we'll explore some current models and approaches to funding and financing childcare facility development that utilize many of the sources and foundations just discussed. Through this section, our objective is to provide an introduction to common approaches to capital stacks for childcare and become familiar with challenges faced in supporting capital needs of the childcare industry overall. It's important to recognize that access to capital is a primary pain point in the childcare industry. And due to a myriad of factors, access to capital is the single greatest barrier to the stability and growth of childcare facilities and environments. As introduced, some of the most prominent challenges that impact the ability of operators to access capital aligned with their facility needs are the unique processes and requirements that result in high market costs per facility, the fact that demand outweighs available capital dollars annually in our state, and that qualification requirements and loan terms are not optimized for the needs of childcare businesses. As introduced in Session 3, often stemming from the following components: an identified local lead, organization, or champion, in-kind donations of tangible and intangible assets, a coalition or local advisory group or council, and diversified partners and capital sources. Let's take a look at some capital efforts across Colorado and what helped make them possible. The first is an ongoing effort through the Clear Creek County Partnership, which includes the Clear Creek Schools Foundation, Clear Creek Metropolitan Recreation District, the Clear Creek School District, the Colorado Department of Early Childhood, the Buell Foundation, the Colorado Education Initiative, the Freeport McMorran Foundation, and Mountain Trails School. This effort was widely advocated for at the community level and elevated to state offices, which helped to address the sizable $6 million capital budget needed for the facility. This included a transformative $1.6 million in congressionally directed spending, an $800,000 employer-based child care facility grant, a $200,000 Circle grant, and a $200,000 Buell Foundation grant. The facility is set to create more than 60 childcare slots in Idaho Spring and is planned to open in 2025. In the town of Basalt, a collaboration between the town and the county identified an opportunity to include the development of a childcare facility housed within the Stotts Mill housing development. While the housing developer provided the core shell for the facility, the budget to retrofit the space to accommodate childcare exceeded local fund availability. A full award from the Employer-Based Child Care Facility Grant Program allowed for local dollars approved by the Pitkin County Board of County Commissioners to be leveraged, rounding out the capital needs of the work. Other contributors included fee reductions from construction and design partners, and the facility opened in September of 2024 to serve nearly 50 students, including infants and toddlers. This is a good example of the ability to unlock capital sources through securing partial project dollars via other mechanisms. Lastly, the Mesa County Clifton campus is an expansive development which includes a child care facility to serve more than 200 children, supported by key local government and foundation partners. This included a total capital stack of over $33 million, achieved through a combination of nearly $19 million in American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding, $4 million in foundation grants, a $1.6 million library reimbursement, and nearly $44.6 million in sales tax revenue. It's important to note here that the significant contribution from ARPA funds were stimulus dollars, and this type of funding is no longer available. However, this presents a new opportunity to evaluate the impacts of the use of these stimulus dollars and contemplate new ways and opportunities to address those funding needs. In the next section, we'll spend some time focused on the role of tax credits and local funding in facility development. Our goal through this section is to understand the role that tax credits and dedicated local funding streams have in funding childcare facility development, incentivizing stakeholder engagement, and garnering support at the local and state level. There are several different types of tax credits that might be utilized to support childcare. Some provide direct funding, while others are tax credits to donors and can be utilized to incentivize donations. Both types can help to reduce and cover the cost of a childcare development project. First, let's look at the Colorado Child Care Contribution Tax Credit, or the CCTC, which has been a state tax credit in Colorado for about 20 years. It provides a 50% tax credit to individuals or businesses who contribute to eligible child care providers up to $100,000 for a $200,000 donation each year. Capital campaign contributions prior to licensure can also be eligible by filling out a form with the Department of Revenue. You can find this information in the resources that accompany this recording. Additionally, child care facilities in enterprise zones may have additional opportunities for tax credits. New market tax credits, or NMTC, are administered by Community Development Finance Institutions, or CDFIs, and can be sold to investors to generate revenue for a project. The process for receiving these credits requires a significant amount of legal work, and so they are typically more appropriate for larger scale and/or co-located projects and facilities. In addition, many communities in Colorado have voter-approved funding that supports childcare. Each community determines the possible uses for this funding. If your community has this type of funding, it is worth asking whether it may be available to support a childcare development project. There are resources available through the Buell Foundation to support communities in developing local funding measures. A link to more information is available in the resources accompanying this recording on the DOLA website. In the last section, we will discuss opportunities to optimize current models and approaches to funding your childcare facility project. Our objective through this section is to introduce opportunities to optimize current approaches to funding and financing childcare facilities in order to support providers, incentivize sources of capital, and create regenerative solutions. Aligned with the key challenges in accessing capital that we listed earlier in this session, opportunities to improve can be summarized as reducing the cost of capital, developing equitable development pathways, and diversifying revenue sources. Reducing the cost of capital. Operators in childcare businesses often cannot take on the level of startup capital and debt service options to build, expand, or stabilize a childcare facility. Therefore, opportunities to reduce the cost of capital to borrowers and contemplate collaborative and blended finance models helps to create low to no cost entry and development options for providers, increasing opportunities for operational start and sustainability options. These may include things like loan guarantee programs or interest rate buy downs, or other methods outside of grant making organizations and lenders to activate higher levels of capital without burdening the operator with those high potential costs over time. Childcare operators and providers represent a diverse community with varying levels of knowledge in identifying and pursuing funding and finance opportunities to meet their facility needs. Due to the high volume of funding sources and types, requirements, and associated processes, operators need support in identifying and navigating these opportunities successfully. Recommendations to approach this need include streamlining access to funding and finance opportunities, creating robust support programs and services, designing access for all childcare business sizes and types, including both center and home-based care providers, through things like technical assistance programs and resources and navigation hubs. Lastly, there are often capital sources and ongoing funding stream opportunities to contemplate that have not yet been utilized for childcare facility development. In addition to spreading awareness and engaging in advocacy efforts discussed earlier, diversifying revenue sources wherever possible should be a primary goal. Traditionally, housing and facility development may pursue different funding sources than childcare. However, diversifying revenue sources can activate new and enhanced sources of capital to support childcare needs or unlock existing sources of capital through collaborating funding methods. Good methods to approach this include a cost and budget analysis, as well as funder and donor convenings to help identify priorities and key next steps. Thank you for learning more about funding and financing childcare facilities. We hope you enjoyed this session, and we look forward to seeing you in session 5.